Hello everyone, welcome to this video. Today I want to show you something very exciting, a simple system that we use to process jobs. For example, if you want to send an email, you don't want to send the email in the same HTTP context because sending of email is a long process. You need to dial a TCP connection, you need to do exchange protocol. It's just too long for the customer to wait. So what do? We offload that job into a different system and allow a command line program or something that is running in the background to take over from there. It's as simple as that. So, you know me, I love Go. And this library is something I have used in the past. It's quite simple, it's reliable, and it's efficient. Now, when we do queues, these days a lot of people use AWS using SQS, or some people use RabbitMQ, some people use Kafka, or some custom queue system. But Redis is a very powerful system, and with this library, you can do a whole lot. You can, with a small Redis instance and a small system, you can process millions of jobs, saving you money. You don't need to deploy anything complicated on AWS. The features that this library offers are great. Right out of the box, you have so much. You can retry, you can schedule a job to run in a later time, you can have multiple queues, you can do so much. You can have a cron job, everything. And now, it supports Prometheus if you want to collect some metrics. It has a web GUI for you to see what is going on. This is a web GUI. Or if you don't like web GUI, there is also a command line interface for you to see exactly what is going on. Great introduction. Now it's time for us to go into the code and let's create some workers and some handlers. I'm going to demo the library and I hope you love them. Now, before we start writing code, if you have not subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing. Most of my visitors are not yet subscribers, so I would be very happy if you subscribe to my channel. All right, let's go into the code. The first thing we want to do is to install the library itself. So I'm going to type go get, and as you can see, this is the path to the library on GitHub. So I'm going to press enter and we have it installed, and that's it. Because I have some autocomplete, I'm going to switch to bash. All right, now that we have our library installed, let's create the folder structure of how I want to implement this library. Now, something very important. The way I structure my folder is just for presentation. You can do it anyhow you like it, right? So let's start with some folders. The first folder I'm going to create is an app folder. Then I'm going to add a CMD folder. In the app folder, I'm going to add another one called tasks. And in that folder, we are going to have a file called tasks.go. In the tasks.go, of course, we're going to need a package. And this is where we're going to have all the code. All right, let's close this out. I'm also going to close this one and then increase the font just so that it looks good in the video. Now, the first thing you want to do is defining the task. What do you want to call your task? And this can be anything, just a string, right? So let's start with a simple one. I always like to prefix my task with task. We can say task, welcome email. And then I do this. I put the namespace, more like the domain, like who is responsible for this message, and then I put that, okay, it's an email, and then it's welcome. I can also do another one, task, password reset, email, password reset. The same thing, who is responsible, the group is an email, and then password reset. Okay, looks good. Next thing is the payload. What kind of structure do we want to put in the queue? For the welcome email, we are going to put just the user ID, so we can say welcome email payload. And then user ID, I'm going to just say it's a string for now. Of course, we can add a tag and user underscore ID. For the password reset, we can do something very similar. Password reset payload struct. What do we need? We need a user ID. Probably can copy this. We can have maybe the token for the password reset. I can name it very well. And lastly, the URL we want to redirect to. And we copy the JSON over, name this token, and URL. And this is the structures we want to put in the queue. Basically, we're going to convert this to JSON and put it in the queue. And then our job handlers will pick up the JSON from the queue, convert it back to a structure, and then use that to process the job. All right. Now, we can stop here, but I want to add few more helper methods. Not super important, but just helper methods. And what I want to do is to say func new welcome email task. And then what we need a user ID. You can take any argument you want. And we're going to return async.task and a possible error. What we need here, we can return async new task. What's going to be the name of the task? This is the name of the task. We're supposed to pass it a byte here, so I'm going to construct a byte, a JSON byte here. This is simple stuff. Here, user ID. We come here, user ID. After that, I'm going to return name. That's it for this one. Next, let's create for the password reset, new password reset task. For this, we need a user ID, we need a token, we need a URL, all of them string, and of course we need to return the same thing here. Very similar. This time around I'm going to say byte slice is equal to JSON masher. Okay, what we want to masher? We want to masher this payload, and we need the user ID. We set it to user ID. Set token to token and URL to URL. Okay, we check for error. If error is not nil, we return nil and the error. Else, we return async new task. Let me scroll down a little bit. This is the name of the task. And then we pass it the byte slice and return nil. Now, something very important here. You see, this also accepts some options. So you can pass in options. We're going to look at this a little bit later, but what we've done so far, sorry for that. What we've done so far basically is we define the name of the task, the payload, this is the structure of the task, and just some helper methods. We could have as well used this directly, but think about it. In everywhere in your code that you want to construct this message, you don't want to do this a million times. So this is very helpful. Now that we have the task, next is to build the worker itself. Let's try to put this message in the queue. To put the message in the queue, let's come here and create another folder called worker. And in that worker folder, we create a main.go. I'm going to close this out now, and then this is going to be package main. All right, let's do the usual func main. Now, in order for this to work, you need to have Redis running on your system. You can use Docker, you can install it locally, but trust me, it's very simple. Just have Redis running on your system. And you can say client, async new client. And then async new Redis client opt. The only thing that you need to pass here is a Redis address. So I'm going to say my Redis is listening on the audio interface, and then on this port 6379. This is what the port my Redis is listening. If your Redis is listening on a different IP address, you may want to specify the IP address here. But for me, this is enough. If you want, you can click on it to see more options, like if your Redis requires some authentication, if you need to select a specific database, if you need to specify some timeout, all that can be customized. Even if you want to use the TLS, you can do it as well. So it's quite comprehensive. Now that we have the client, let's define the closing of the client. These are usual Go stuff. The next step is to put a message in the queue. So how do we do that? Very simple. Let's create the task. Remember, we have some functions that can create tasks. So I can say password reset task, and then error. We're going to say task.new password reset task. The user ID, I'm going to say 101. What do we need here? Token can be XXX or test token. And what else? The URL. We check for error. Since we are in main, we can do log theta here. Now we have this variable to use. To put a message in the queue is very simple. You call this client.enqueue and you give it the task you want to put in the queue, which we name PR. And what else? You have, that's it. If you want to end it this way, that's it. But it returns two values, an info and an error. So let's check for the error. And then we have the info. Now that we have the info, we can print something out. Let's see. What do we want to print? Enqueued, hope I spell it well, task. So we're going to put the task ID, the queue name, that would be good to have. So I'm going to say pr.type. It's like this. I think, let's see what this type is. Yeah, it's a string. Good. Then we can say info.id. Okay, task, let's say like this. And type this. So the last one is the queue, which is info.queue. So you have this good data that you can use for debugging and all that. And this is the client. Everything that we need about the client is done. Format, so what do we have that doesn't match? I say type is a function. Okay, so say this type is a function. So let's call it good. Now, we can run it. Actually, so let's go ahead and run it. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to say go run. I put the cmd worker. Run it and good. Look at what we have. Enqueue, this is a task, right? And then type, let's see, maybe we mess up the type. Okay, we mess up this a little bit. Type is the first one. Anyhow, is this okay? But this is, let me just switch it out to avoid. Yeah. So we have one item in the queue, put another one again. So this is the task, this is the type, and this is the queue. It's using the default queue. Now let's go to the documentation quickly for me to show you something. To run this command line program, you come here down to the bottom of it here. You see, this is a command line program. Sorry, that is the web. This is a command line program. You need to install it first. Then you run this command, this async dash. So I'm going to come here and run it. As you can see, this is our default queue. And what we have the size is 2. That means we have 2 items in the queue. And yeah, so you see we have 2 pending items in the queue. So I'm going to exit from it. And then we're going to close it out. Next step is to write the handlers to process each of the items from the queue. To write the handler, we are going to do something very similar to what we have here. That means I can copy this one, this Redis configuration. We can copy it. So we are going here in the command, create another folder called handler. Now, here is the coolest thing about the handler. This handler can be in a different project. It can be in another computer. Completely. The only requirement is, the name of the, the name of the task that you want to consume and the Redis address. That is the only requirement for you to consume the task in the queue. So here we have the handler in there, and I'm going to have main.go. At this time, we can actually close out some of this for now, and we'll do another package main and func main. Here, what we need to create a server. I'm going to name it srv, and then async.new server. Right, this is it. We are actually going to use this server mock shortly, but let's create this one first. Then we need the Redis option that we created earlier. I pasted it because I copied it from the client. Then we need this config. So how many jobs you want to process concurrently? So I'm going to say maybe 5, right? Or even 2. Then if you have multiple queues, you can do something here. I want to make sure I show you this one. You can create a map of the queues and say that the default queue, you want to give it some priority. Maybe the default queue is important, but not too important. You can say it is 2. Maybe you have another queue called critical for like urgent, that needs urgent processing. Maybe we can give it 6. And maybe there are some low processing stuff, maybe batch processing, something we don't really care about, but we want to process it anyway. Maybe that can be 1. So these priorities affect how the jobs are processed in the queue, and you can set them up like this. Okay, we have the server created. Now the next thing, we need a mux. And the designer of this library made it so easy that if you have worked with HTTP package, then working with this one is almost identical. So you create a server mux, and this one, new server mux. New server mux. Then you register. You say mux.handle func. This is exactly what we have. So you need to pass like routing now. So we are going to say for this queue, tax.password reset. Tax password reset. Yes, we are going to call this function. And I think we can do this. That's it. If you want, you can return, let's return me to take away the error. As you can see, this, if you want, all this method or the functions can be in a different package and you just mount everything here, but this is like handling a route. Very simple. I just want to put everything in main here for you to see it clearly, not because we cannot organize it better, but just like this for you to see. We have that. We need for task, welcome email, and we have for this. Now, what do I want to do? Let me show you how we can process them. Let's say for the welcome email, remember we have user ID in the JSON, so I can say request. Let's do something on the fly here with struct, and this is the beauty of Go. String, and then JSON. And then just user ID, and we can do this. This gives us a struct on the fly. And with this structure, you know the drill, we can say if error JSON, we want to unmarshal. We want to marshal the, look at here, we have the task here. So the payload is going to come as t.payload. And we want to marshal it into the request that we just created. Of course, if we are unable to do that, we want to return an error. And the content of the task doesn't really matter, but we are using JSON here. You can use XML, you can use plain text, you can use binary actually. If that is the case, we return an error. Now, this is, let me come back to this shortly. After that, we can print a message. Welcome email sent, and I'll put like request.user ID when we just put this. After that, return me to say that the job was done. This is all it takes to handle a job. We can do the same thing here, but here I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to just print out a message. Password reset message sent, and that's it here. The good thing, we can use println here. The good thing is, if you imagine if all your functions here like this are in some sort of package. I'm going to show you something else, but let's run the program actually to see how it behaves. Remember, we have something going on here, right? We have two pending tasks in the default queue. I'm going to open another terminal and then go run cmd handler. Say something declare not use. Okay, sorry, my bad. I made a mistake. I didn't start the server, so good. So let's copy the server over. Sorry about that. So I need to start the server, which I can start with error server.run, pass it the mux. If error not me, log.theta error. I think we can create it here. We can also do it in these formats, but anyhow. All right, so my bad. Now that we're done, you see, we just ran the handler and we have password reset message was sent, password reset message was sent. Two messages that we have in the queue. And if you go back to the queue now, what do we have? What you are seeing here is because of the test that I have done previously. So you have this data right here, but it doesn't really matter. But you no longer see anything in pending. All right, so I'm going to stop it, and we are going to go back to, let's go back to the code, and then I'll show you something else. We're going to the worker. This is the worker program. So I'm going to move this over here a little bit, close this one down, and show you that, look at, we are firing only the password reset. We can also welcome email password can be task.new welcome email task, user ID, maybe this is the 101, and then we check for error, and then we enqueue. I'm going to take it like this. We enqueue, and I think we copy this one here and then here as well, since good. So as you can see, we have two different messages going into the queue. Now let's go back to the terminal. I'm going to add a new terminal again, switch it to bash. So I'm going to say go run cmd worker and run it. So we're going to put two messages in the queue, different message type this time around. So you see, sorry, we didn't change the type when we copied it. New welcome. Let's see. I think we have customer email password reset. It's been repeated twice. So let's check the functions. Welcome. Password reset. Password reset. What of here? Welcome email, okay. I don't see the error yet, so if in case you've seen it, just be patient with me. Let's look at it one more time. Task new password reset task 01, and then we enqueue the PR. We print out the message. Task new welcome task. And then we enqueue it. It should look. Let's go back here and see what's going on. I still see the same message type. Okay, let's go back here and see what's going on. Let's check the queue itself. Let's run it. Go run cmd handler. So let's handle them and see. Okay, so password reset was done, and this is correct here. So that means just the printing out of the message. Let me do something too and use that info instead. Oh, I've seen where the error is. We don't need to change it. Async. Look at, we just, instead of here. Yeah, when you're recording video, you'll be surprised how little things can trip you. Okay, fantastic. So we have that, and let's run it one more time. CMD worker. This will put two different messages in the queue for sure. The password reset and a welcome mail. Both of them are in the default queue. Now, something else I want to do is to go back there in the worker. Instead of using the default queue, what if we come here and we say async.queue and we give it that low, right? Maybe we don't care much about password reset, which is not true. Maybe it should be critical actually. Let's copy the name from here to make sure that no mistakes. So this queue, and then for the welcome message, maybe that can go into low, right? Like here. Let's see what I'm doing wrong again. Oh, I mean, pasting is in a different place. So here, so in the enqueue, you can, let's actually open the enqueue and you see that you have a lot of options. What if we want to maybe send it later? We can also do async process in You see, this time dot duration, so we really want to process it after 5 seconds. What if we want to add some retry when something fails? Okay, we can do that here as well. Async max retry, like the maximum retry is going to have, maybe it's 5 times. You can have all these settings. Now, I'm going to close this out. I'm going to close this out. Then let's go back to the handler for the welcome email. Remember, I said I was going to come back here. Now, let's say the job failed. How do we tell the system that the job failed? Well, if you come back to the documentation, this is where it's very important for you to read the doc. You need to wrap the error a little bit like, let me show you. You need to wrap it like this. So that means we should do something like this. You see, we should unmarshal, and then you can skip retry. Now what happened is this is not going to be retried, but let's say you return normal error that you didn't specify this skip retry. That is going to signal to the system that the job failed, and then don't forget the max retry that we configured would kick in. It's going to retry for that maximum time, and then the job is going to go off. All right, so we have this. But for something like JSON, honestly, you don't want to retry this. The payload is invalid. The job should be exited, and then that's it. Finally, we can go and try it again. Go CMD and worker, put something in the queue, right? And this, now we can go to this place. Let's look at the view now. You see, we no longer have just the default. You're seeing critical, you're seeing default, you are seeing low. All of them, they have something in the queue. When we run it, when we can run a worker multiple times, you have a lot more jobs in there. In short, you can put this in a loop to happen a lot of times. And look at the queue now, it has many items there. What I want to do is to say go run handler. So we are going to have, I'm going to have this, and I'm also going to have this. Let's see if this one get a chance to pick any job. It doesn't, right? The one job already processed everything, so we didn't get a chance to process it. But you can have multiple handlers to run it. Now, this is the video.